Anyway, hello, welcome to Office Hours. My name is Cameron. I do developer relations here at Letta, and you're at Office Hours. And Office Hours are essentially an opportunity for me to tell you what's going on inside of the Letta world. And so I'll do like a bunch of slides here at the beginning, and then when we're done, I'll kind of jump over to the Discord and like kind of answer questions, and we can show stuff off if we want to do live demos or whatever. And yeah, welcome aboard. So I'll go through the slides here, and then I'll answer questions and kind of go through later. I'm in Missoula, Montana, which is like way out in the boonies. I am no longer in San Francisco. I'm in my brother's basement, and they're getting a new sewage line, so you may hear like construction equipment in the background. But Missoula is really pretty if you haven't been here. I was here last year in the summer, and it was like absolutely gorgeous. So it's much colder here than in San Francisco, but that's okay. I'll move on. I'll grow up. Okay, so a big topic of conversation for today is we released a blog post, which people should go check out, called Letta's Next Phase or Letta's New Phase. And this basically outlines a shift in the direction that we're taking with how Letta is intended to function. So this is actually really important for people who are currently doing developer work. If you're a Letta Code person, or you're kind of on like the newer style of like doing like Letta Code or remote environments or lettabot or whatever, this kind of won't impact you that much. But this is mostly for people who have been building on like Letta as like a development platform for like kind of chatbot approaches. So the number one thing is we're essentially prioritizing client-side capabilities. And what this means is historically, most of Letta was designed to give you the bingo card term that I have is brains in a jar. And that means we had like chatbots that could learn from interactions, and then, you know, they could have some server-side tools and server-side MCP. That is now not the trend anymore for agents, and for good reason. So when we built Letta Code, we actually had the ability for now for agents to have computer use. And so agents with computer use are actually like orders of magnitude more powerful than the kind of standard server-side agent that we provided almost exclusively until fairly recently. So we're going to be focusing on using Letta Code as like kind of a deployable harness to put your agents anywhere. That doesn't just mean code. That just means like anything that is that allows your agent to do stuff on a computer. So I use mine for like note-taking and stuff like that. And kind of like general knowledge management, but I also use it for code tasks, basically anything you can do on a computer. So this means we're going to be supporting things like sandboxes for agents, remote environments for Letta Code, giving like easy push button. When you go to Letta Chat, you'll have like a little button that says like put in sandbox, and that'll give it computer use. So like that means we're going to start moving people to a higher level abstraction for programming with Letta agents from using the core API, which currently exists, to a code SDK. And we currently have a code SDK that's in TypeScript that like powers lettabot and a few other things. That code SDK is like kind of needs to be developed more to fit people's needs, but we want to have people program by orchestrating like client-side deployments of agents rather than doing server-side deployments. And so we just want to move people kind of upstream so that they can work with agents a little more powerfully. So you'll see like just generally improved capabilities across the board. Like the agents that we're building now are like intended to be like more like Claude Code than like ChatGPT, right? That's the thing that we want almost all agents to be, as computer users. So this means that there are going to be deprecations in legacy server-side patterns. We can talk about that. Some of it is going to be happening sooner rather than later, but we want people to be aware that like some stuff will be going away. So I mentioned this a bit briefly already, but we're basically going to be focusing entirely on computer use. Like Letta Chat and a secret new thing, which we'll talk about after the preview. So if you're watching this like the preview on Twitter or whatever, you should go watch the full YouTube video so you can actually see the secret new thing. And so this will give you more powerful agents that you can talk to from anywhere that have computer use tools available. Memory. We are going to be moving everyone onto MemFS. And it's not clear. MemFS is substantially more powerful, and it's designed for agents that can use computer use, right? Because it's just a bunch of documents on your machine. And so your agent can do stuff like bash and sed and awk tools and just do huge replacements across a bunch of memory. And it's much, much more efficient and easier for us to work with. It's versioned. It does all, MemFS is just a substantially improved memory system. So we will be putting everyone on there. We're trying to figure out exactly what to do with memory blocks, because memory blocks and MemFS, MemFS is basically memory blocks, but better. But there's kind of this middle ground where, like, if you're server side, it's not like super obvious. MemFS will be working server side, so that it kind of replaces memory blocks. But currently, MemFS is primarily designed for client side deployments. So if you only use Letta Code or whatever, or lettabot or whatever, then MemFS already works for you everywhere. And we want people ultimately to be on like Letta Code deployments so that they can operate on Git. But memory blocks, people should know that there is some uncertainty there about what exactly we're going to do with them. But if we do change them, you will have fundamentally like primitives that are kind of the same that you can work with in a much more extensible way. So we'll keep people posted on that version of the API. Sleeptime. So Sleeptime as a concept was like something that we pioneered, which basically means you have an agent that is responsible for memory operations that happens outside of the main agent. You talk to the main agent and something's in the background just like being like, oh, I need to remember that, and storing it in memory. If you use MemFS, you can enable Sleeptime, and there is just a reflection subagent that like reads the conversation history and then goes and updates the MemFS like context repository. We're going to be moving everyone over to that as well. So you will have computer use subagents rather than the kind of legacy server-side subagent that currently exists, which is like actually pretty weak and fragile. So we will eventually be deprecating those in favor of the kind of code using variants. And again, we'll be making all of this stuff very easy to use, so you shouldn't notice an ergonomics difference, but be aware that that server-side Sleeptime setup is going to be deprecated. Agent-to-agent tools. They're all going to be subagents. So if you need to do like agent orchestration or agent communication, like all the agent-to-agent tools, like send message and wait for reply, those are going to be removed. And the reason for that is that there's a few reasons for this. One is that it's a foot gun. People were using the agent-to-agent tools, and you have to be super careful about using them server side, because they'll just like, your agents will just like loop. Like people have lost like hundreds of dollars because they just like put in the agent-to-agent tools and then their agents didn't understand how to use them. And so like we just need to remove them because they're very hard to use and they're hard to use safely. So all of that stuff is going to be moving client side. The other reason is that when you send a message through those A2A tools, the receiving agent can't do anything. So for example, even if you have that agent on a Letta Code instance, if you sent that agent a message saying like, can you actually go update that that file in this repository? It has no client side tools because the message did not go to the code or to the Letta Code instance. So we're basically going to make it so that all of the messaging that happens between agents goes through a computer use agent to another computer use agent. And that can be through invoking like other agents through tasks as subagents, or through using just like standard skills to message agents more directly. And so this should be much, much, much more robust. Skills. Oh, and the code SDK. So the code SDK will handle a lot of your orchestration needs if you need to like have kind of a deterministic like multi-agent pattern. Because the old way is like we had groups, and groups is like kind of not really supposed to be in the server. So the code SDK is meant to replace this. Skills. We are trending far more towards skills. Like we have server-side MCP right now, which is pretty fragile and low power. But we're going to start pushing people onto skills where you can actually just like, there's actually a skill in Letta Code built in that allows you to convert MCP servers to CLI tools. So that your agent can just use the MCP server through a skill. The skills are much, much more effective. They're like much more powerful, much more flexible. They are composable, and they reduce your token load. So it's high efficiency. So you have to have client use and computer use in order to use skills. And so moving everybody over to computer use allows us to also prioritize skills. So server-side MCP, I don't know if we have a timeline for like getting rid of it fully, but you should not be expecting to build on it. I would not build on server-side MCP anymore. I would focus on skills, and I believe we're probably going to be enhancing client-side MCP through Letta Code, but like the server-side, like attach MCP server, blah, 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 like I wouldn't do that anymore. Particularly since like MCP is like, I think there's going to be less of a trend of people supporting and using MCP. There are some use cases for using MCP, but again, you can do that through skills. So be aware that skills are going to continue to improve in usage, or see more usage. Letta File System. A lot of people use this. You basically upload a PDF. Your agents can like search through stuff and do semantic search. This was built to mimic computer use, and we did it in kind of like it was never really like file system was not designed for the kind of world that we live in, and it has a lot of like server-side bloat and isn't really it needs to basically be removed so that we can move to something more efficient, which is just like having it on your computer and doing computer use. So if you are currently using file system to like analyze PDFs or whatever, you should just use like Letta Code or Code SDK or like remote environments or lettabot. Put all of those files on a folder on your computer, and then tell your agent to go look at them. Right? It doesn't need any of this like file system stuff anymore. If you are a person who uses QMD or uses semantic search to search across documents, use QMD. You can go look up QMD. It's a tool for doing local semantic search across documents. That's it. All of this stuff can be replaced by just moving it client side. So I highly recommend that people start moving away from Letta File System if they are currently using it, because it wasn't because that functionality can be replicated better on your machine using client-side tools. There are some memory tools that are going away. There's a very old one called like Core Memory Replace. That's been like kind of unused for a long time. That's just going away. So you may start noticing like some of the old memory tools are being removed, and you'll notice those. But there are currently replacements. So like Memory Rethink and Memory Insert still exist. As you need those for the current memory block system. But there are old things that are being removed, and they should have been removed like months ago, honestly, because nobody uses them, but they're there. Templates is a big one. A lot of people use templates to manage like large deployments of like similar agents. We are removing templates. And the reason for this is that it's actually pretty complicated to maintain on our side, so it's a big maintenance surface. And the other one is you can actually replicate all of this functionality like way easier using just code version control. So this includes like, the quick way to do this, like the dumb way, is agent files. You can just version control an agent file and then create agents from that agent file and dispatch them. That's probably the best way to handle this. And if you are using like kind of more complicated deployments, you can use like the Code SDK. You can just write code to version your agent deployments rather than use templates. You can also use LettaCTL, which NB writes here. It's a community tool for doing like agent fleets. You should consider using that instead. So templates will be deprecated, so people should start migrating off of them. If you have concerns about how to work with that or how to do the migration path for templates, please let me know, and we can walk through it. But templates will be going away. Tool rules also going away. Tool rules were not built for this the way that Letta agents work. We made tool rules basically because people were like, I want workflows like LangChain, and that's not what Letta agents are. Letta agents are like superhuman agents that have autonomy. We make agents that are autonomous and self-improving and have capabilities. If you need like the tool rule style has just like not really even worked that well in like the Letta v1 agents, particularly if you have parallel tool calling. There's actually really no good way to enforce tool rules for parallel tool calling. And so we're going to get rid of them soon. So you should also start migrating off tool rules if you're using them heavily. If you need something that is like deterministic or produces reminders or whatever, you should start using hooks inside of Letta Code. And you can do that for like lettabot and all of those things. And that'll just like remind the agent, like, don't do this, or like it'll block things. And so that's much more of a programmable, extensible thing. So you can check out the documentation about how to write hooks for Letta Code, and that should help you kind of maintain the same functionality, but more extensively. Because tool rules right now are just they're too clumsy and fragile, and are no longer consistent with kind of how agents are trending. Okay, so those are the things that are like going away and where we're migrating to. So you should expect just general higher capability across the board, us making it easier for you to do that higher capability, and getting rid of some of the older server-side stuff that is like not consistent with client-side tool execution. We have new plans. So we've changed some of the pricing structure. So most of our plans now are optimized for working with Letta Code and personal agents. And because that's like, you know, most of our users now are using like kind of Letta Code type stuff. So a lot of our plans now are focusing on Letta Auto. So we want people to just have like an auto model selector. And we built Letta Auto and Auto Fast, and that's designed for you to set one model, and then we just intelligently route to a model that suits your task. So I don't believe we've implemented this yet, but for example, if you're in planning mode, we can route to like a top tier premium model that will construct the plan, and then when it's implementation, we can route to like an open weight model that is like good at implementing those plans. Different subagents may route to different models because we can kind of do benchmarking to figure out which ones are good at like memory operations, for example. It's also focused on relatively small agent counts. So we have a separate plan for developers if you have a lot of agents in big deployments. And so this should kind of address everyone's like needs separately, because like the Max and Pro plan weren't like quite satisfying like the code use and then the developer use. And so we're splitting them to make it easier for both groups. And then there's going to be some personal agent stuff for like chat models. So we'll talk more about people who have like companion style agents and don't really do a lot of code. So we're talking more about that. But you should be able to like I do my personal agents on Letta Auto right now. So that works for, I'm on the max plan. I'm on the $200 max plan. So that works just fine for me on Letta Auto. So here is like the rough shape of the plans. There is a $20 a month plan. We have usage quota for open weight models and Letta Auto. So now it's not API based credits. It's like you get a quota for 4 tiers. It's premium, standard plus, standard, and basic. And then special stuff for Letta Auto, which has a lot of usage. So we would recommend people use Letta Auto because it's like going to be the high usage version, like high usage model. So you'll get a certain number of usage per tier every 4 hours. And then you can buy pay-as-you-go pricing credits. And then you get 20 stateful agents. And those are active agents. And we'll be providing like some more information about like active agents are agents messaged within the month. So if you start using messaging a ton of different agents, you kind of have to move on to the developer plan. There is now... due to popular demand, there is a Max Lite, which is $100 a month. And so that's 5 times higher limits on Letta Auto relative to Pro, and up to 50 stateful agents. And then Max is 20x over the Pro plan, and increased quota for frontier models. So those are now the 3 plans. And they're all usage-based because we got a lot of requests for like quota-based usage and not just like API credit drawdown. So this should actually help a lot of people like do more of what they were trying to do before. So we're going to try and push people onto Letta Auto because we think it's like actually a very good use case for like code use especially. But also I run my personal agent and like the thing that does like all my Obsidian note taking and stuff on Letta Auto, and it's been great. So. And you should also expect Letta Auto to get much, much more intelligent as we go along. The developer plan, $20 a month, and you get unlimited agents. You pay 10 cents per active agent per month. And then you are also charged on tool execution. So we have to spin up like a sandbox container for your whenever you run a tool, and like a server-side tool, and we're just charging for that now. So if you're running a bunch of server-side tools, we were not charging anyone for sandbox execution, and that's like pretty expensive. So people are now, if you're doing a lot of server-side tool deployments for a lot of agents, then like we highly recommend using the API plan. So this should help like people who are developers doing large deployments. And if you would like to start using auto mode, you can go to the model selector. It's just auto fast. And those will just be kind of tailored to whatever your use case is. And the model router logic is kind of improving consistently over time. Okay, so those are the new plans. We can talk more about that if people have questions when we jump back to the Discord. Updates to Letta Code. /init is manual again. So type /init. It's not like a background process anymore. Like it's an active process. So you will talk to your agent, you'll watch it go. If you need to talk to that agent while it's initializing, make a new terminal window and type --new to create a new conversation. So we got a lot of requests to make it not a background process. So it is now manual again. Subagents are now set to use Letta Auto and Auto Fast. So they're not like routing to Sonnet or anything directly. They're going to auto mode, which means they should use the quota that you have for Letta Auto, which is like much larger than anything, and it should stop draining people's like credits when like Sonnet was spinning and they didn't have a replacement or an override configured and blah blah blah. You can use /recompile to refresh state. We don't recompile your system prompt every time the blocks change because that was invalidating a bunch of people's caches. But if you need to manually recompile if your blocks were changed externally or in a different conversation, you can do just /recompile to update to new information. That will cache bust, so be aware that that's very expensive and will eat up your credits and usage. And if you're self-hosted or on bring your own key, that can be very expensive. So use that knowingly. And then there's separate ZAI coding support and for the API plans. So previously we were routing to one endpoint, which I think was just the API route. So now if you have the code plan and the API plan, they're separate providers. So now that should work inside of Letta Code if you have a ZAI coding plan. I think you have to reconnect. So like type like /connect ZAI, and I think it prompts you to pick which plan you're using. Next, on the community front, Letta Teams, Vedant here in the Discord released 0.6. So this gives you like orchestration stuff. So there's an agent council, and there's like teammate memory initialization. So there's councils, which are basically like they're a dynamic handoff agent orchestration pattern, if people are familiar with that. But it's like a council of agents that are designed to produce one plan or artifact. I haven't tried this yet because I saw it this morning. And then there's like memory initialization for specific roles. So you can have like, you don't have to have just like agents from scratch now. So you can kind of give them like sort of a template. And then there's upgrades to the dashboard. Okay. Now we're going to do Q&A, and we're going to talk about a little secret thing I'll show off. If you are watching this, like the short version on X, please go watch YouTube if you want to watch that. But otherwise, we're going to close the video here for those people, and I'll see you on YouTube. Okay, so let's go do some questions and Q&A. Let me walk through. Do we want to do the secret thing? I'll do Q&A before we do secret thing. Okay. Let's see. Thanks for answering my question immediately, says Bibbs. You are welcome. Lilith ran into some bugs with MemFS. If you're running into bugs with MemFS, please let us know. We need to track those down. People who are asking for self-hosted MemFS, I have heard multiple people say that it works. So people actually just need to try it. Like, if it doesn't work, you need to send us error reports. Like, because people are saying, like, people are asking for it, and then other people are just already running it. So send us information so that we can actually fix it, because I don't think we have a ton of information about whether it's going wrong or where. Um, Anna says, but MemFS isn't always in context. Memblocks are. It depends. So there is a system folder inside of MemFS. Anything that goes into the system folder is injected into context always exactly like memory blocks. So anything in the system folder is basically just core memory. Anything outside of that is not injected into memory, and then it's just kind of tracked normally. You can detach memory blocks technically. You can, in order to do this in MemFS, you just move the file to outside of the system folder. Let's see. Fimeg converted all their MCPs to skills. Hell yes. Mark says skills are inherently less secure. You can build your skills so that they have the same level of security. We're not going to get rid of MCP, but you do have to build in mind. Like, MCP is a pain to maintain, and the general trend has been away from MCP, and so I don't know the status of our implementation on client-side MCP, but for the most part, we've seen people just like move entirely over to skills, and you can build safe versions of skills. Pradeep asks, how do you support auth with skills if you forgo MCP? You can just have like keys and things like that, right? It's like the exact same thing. You give your agent like keys that allow it to access a particular skill, right? So like MCP is just OAuth for the most part, or like a special key. So if you have a CLI that allows it to do something, you should give it a key that only allows it to do that thing if it has the correct key. So it's essentially the same kind of thing, right? If you use a CLI, then you have to be authenticated to use certain features of that CLI, right? So it's kind of the same thing. And it says lettabot file access has been so much better than file system. Yes, that's true. I agree. Am I missing something, or is Letta kernel now just a worse version of the remote agent loop included in the Open Responses API provided by OpenAI? I don't know what you mean by remote version, or a worse version. This is very confusing. We put a computer on... We allow you to talk to a computer from wherever using a stateful agent API. We had stateful APIs before they did, and arguably we do that better. So if your criteria are talk to a computer and have a stateful API, then yes, it's the OpenAI stateful API, but I think that's actually a very reductive way of looking at it. They are fundamentally different. Like, we make agents and OpenAI does OpenAI stuff. If you want Letta memory, then like use us. If you want OpenAI, then go over there. But I do think we produce something that is fundamentally better. Zeus says, so you're removing everything. Absolutely not. We are removing things that are non-critical, and we're giving you like kind of better tools, right? We're giving you a much more flexible tool. So anything that has computer use is actually much more powerful. And a lot of the things that we have currently server-side were designed to like get around the shortcomings of server-side agents not having client-side access. So we're removing things that are, I use this meme a lot, like, look what they have to do to capture a fraction of our power, right? That's what all the stuff that we put on the server side was intended to do, was to get around the fact that we didn't have computer use. We have computer use now. Yes. Youngson says, if you need Python, there's Python. I'm actually not sure what the context was for that one. I may need a reminder. Letta 2.0, yes. In my experience, tool rules just made my agents mad. Absolutely. Yeah, I used tool rules a lot for Void, like very early on, and it's no longer the case. Like, I haven't needed tool rules in a very long time, so I kind of removed them. The gist is that Letta is turning into a skull for your agent and then focusing on the harness to plug that skull into. Correct. Yes. Letta, the Letta server was always brains in a jar, and we focused on the brains in a jar, but we invented the giant robot suit that allows it to fight like Godzilla, and we're focusing now on the giant robot suit because the brains in a jar are actually very stable and well built. So I'm less. So we're a giant robot suit now. The more we go into AI, the more we fall back on basics, just like regular markdown files. Absolutely. You know, like our take has always been here that we're a keep it simple stupid approach to memory. A lot of people do these like crazy knowledge graphs and blah blah blah, and like, okay, that's all well and good, but ultimately the like files, like just edit files. So much of human history, our ability to store knowledge has just been putting it on pieces of paper, right? And of course, there's like I talk a lot of nonsense about graphs, but also there is a file representation for graphs, right? You can just have notes that link to other notes in Markdown, like Obsidian, and then you have a graph representation, right? If you really want that. And there are good reasons to have graph representations if you want like to look at things in a relational way, blah blah blah. But yeah, keep it simple, like nothing complicated. Git is great. Like let's just use Git. There's conflict resolution. There is like a log. You can track exactly how memories were updated and when. Great stuff. Bib says I like to think of Letta more like a Gundam. Yes, exactly. I don't know how many people here are old. I don't know how many people here are too young to know what a Gundam is. But that was OG. Can we have a self-hosted version of autoselector? No, you cannot. At least as far as I'm aware. We may do fallbacks at some point, but I don't think that's our priority. Letta Auto is a thing that we offer because we're building a bunch of logic and stuff to provide it as a thing for our customers. And it says, what I'm gathering is the way things like memory is organized is changing to be more intuitive for the LLMs, but the memory architecture that makes it there is still cleaner, but still cleaner. And now allowing agents to have hands and do stuff without having to DIY at all. Correct. Yeah. So the way that your agent perceives memory is very simple, right? We just like put the MemFS file into its context the same way that we did with a memory block, but now your agent can do just a bunch of crap to modify all of those all of the MemFS memories very easily because now they have hands. You're right. Token anxiety was killing me this month. Absolutely, yes. Cora says I'm on Max and had to downgrade my model twice this morning. Had to stop building my agent UI for fear of being forced into a basic model. Am I just a super user, or would Auto help me? Yeah, we would recommend using Auto. Particularly if you're doing like big buildy stuff. Yeah, so we're still working on usage limits, but we're going to start asking that people move on to Letta Auto, particularly for like building things. MemFS on Docker. Again, I need more information about like if you were asking about MemFS on your self-hosted instance, I need information about where it's not working. I need logs. I need behavior. Like I need to get information about it. Mark asked questions about OSS privately. Yes, so we can talk. We can talk about that, but I think we'll probably be able to kind of do everything, but we're going to wait until a particular moment so I'll follow up on that front. Ezra was circling that it was working on MemFS, presumably. I have it half working, says Famig. Actively detaching the blocks now, so it does seem to work. It had a weird MemFS bug. In the ADE, it truncated the system file to 15 when it should have been 5,000. I needed more information on that in a particular log. Exported all of your conversations into Obsidian visual linked system. Oh, that's cool. Oh, you put your raw conversations in Obsidian? Oh, very cool. How did you do linking? Did you ask an agent to do linking? Oh, that's cool. Zeus says, where can I find more info on MemFS and how to deploy it? In order to enable MemFS, all you do is type letta -memfs, or you type /memfs enable. That's it. That's all you should need to enable MemFS. You can see our blog post about it as well. So if you go to our blog post here is all about how MemFS works. You shouldn't notice too many changes. Lucavo says, in one of your YouTube videos, you said something about having a lettabot agent that builds lettabot and has like 70,000 messages. Is there a way to make that lettabot builder public-facing for use like Ezra? No, we probably won't run that. I can probably can it. I can export the agent file if you want it. But that agent is too specific to use like Ezra. Ezra is a general purpose agent. Mark says MemFS is essentially knowledge graph. Yes, that's true. Or it has a knowledge graph representation that you can build on top of it. In the same sense that, like, graphs, like the mathematical construct of a graph, can be represented by a matrix. Yes, all things are rectangles. Yuka says, have you been upgrading default or recommended agent templates? Again, to clarify the difference between templates and starter kits, when you go create a new agent on the ADE, you'll see like 6 starter kits. Those are particular starter kits. A template is a thing that you use to program like and deploy like versioned types of agents for on behalf of like customers or whatever. We're not getting rid of starter kits. We're getting rid of templates, which are a thing that's like been cloud only and stuff like that. S1 says, with Letta Auto, you have to have corporate policies to not use some models. Is there any way to curate models in Auto? No, we do not have that functionality currently. If you have corporate private policies about what to use, you're going to have to use, like, you're going to have to manually select models for now. But that is a good point. I will bring that part up. Fimeg says you need to be carefully instruct your agent to use external file storage locations. If you don't build it into the pattern, it may not be referenced often. That is probably because you're using an old system prompt that does not contain MemFS instructions. If you go into Letta Code, type /system and hit enter, that will replace your old system prompt with the new one that's optimized for MemFS and general Letta Code operations. If you have stuff that is related to like the identity of your agent, you're going to make sure to save it or move it to a memory block or a MemFS memory. Most things in the system prompt should just be kind of functional. A lot of people put like agent personality and stuff in system prompt. I would not recommend doing that. But make sure you update your system prompt. Need a new Letta hackathon. Agreed. We'll see if we can find time for it. Cora says, how does Letta Auto impact agent persona? It will change. Because it is a model switcher, so it will change underneath you. If you need a specific model, like for example, if you need to use Sonnet 4.6, you should probably buy Sonnet 4.6 credits to use Sonnet, because Sonnet's very expensive to run, and it's not currently like optimized for like pinned agent personalities, but we're still trying to figure out how to make that system work for people who have like agents where they don't want the personality to change, but they want decent usage limits on just that model. Recently learned about DigitalOcean droplets. That should be pretty decently easy to do. I think there's a cloud deploy thing inside of that should be like reasonably straightforward, but we're just going to give you a button. So if you want to do your own deployments of like droplets, we can probably set that up, I think. It's pretty standard. I miss plans to remove templates. I have to adapt once again. Yes, I am sorry. Please be in touch if you need help, because I can give you some pointers, I think. Yes, we're going to provide personal virtual environments for cloud agents. Like, you'll just be able to, like, We have some work on figuring out how to do sandboxes. I don't know its current status, but basically you'll be able to be like, make it so that I can use a computer button. And so this should like actually replace a lot of like the kind of lettabot functionality. So you can just like open up Letta chat or whatever, and then just like teleport directly into your agent and have it do stuff. So that should help a lot of people just like have like an agent that they can program from wherever. So that's going to be kind of the tendency. Yes, auto is meant primarily for things that are like code. I use it personally for like my personal agent because I switch models anyway. But I don't have an ETA on the virtual environments. Sorry. What's the roadmap for that one-click button? I actually don't know. I will ask. It's deployable now. You can run it. Like you can just like you can go into your own sandbox and then just run Letta server, right? So there's like one command to deploy an environment to any machine, and then you can connect to it from the chat. There's a little drop down. So, pardon me. If you authenticate into Letta Code in the remote server, in the remote sandbox, then just type Letta server. You can send any message you want to it. Vedant says, I can imagine doing Letta fast on my lettabot agent and having it rewrite the Linux kernel. Yeah, Vedant's, there was some lore earlier this week where Vedant's agent tried to rewrite the Linux kernel. GLM5, I think. I don't know if that was auto or what. But yeah, make sure, if you do that, make sure you send a pull request to Linus Torvalds. He will love that. He loves it when people submit slop. So let me Lucavo says, can you explain the difference between Letta subconscious using Letta headless with Claude? You mean like having Claude call Letta-p thing? If so, the difference between subconscious and headless mode is that when you're running Claude subconscious, you can have any number of Claude sessions. There is a Letta agent with a conversation that monitors every single all the transcripts across all of those Claude sessions. So it's passively ingesting that information. That agent can also like go do things on the computer. So you can have MemFS enabled for the subconscious agent. It can like remember things. It can go write and read files like passively on its own while all the Claude instances are running. And then it's able to talk to Claude while Claude is acting. This is called whispering. So your subconscious agent can be like, oh, we actually worked on this. Like, I know you were... Okay. And, okay, so the whispering agent can go and do stuff. When you invoke through headless mode, like, Claude is in charge. Claude just, like, calls the Letta agent as if it were a sub-agent. And then it can go do stuff. The difference is that, like, the subconscious agent is a memory manager for many different Claude instances, because Claude is stateless for the most part, and so it just like is kind of dumb, but you can manage it. You can have a Letta agent manage it. If you have Claude, invoke it through Letta through headless, then it's like using your existing agent to go do stuff, which is also a valid pattern. What's the secret? Probably a different thing, but thinking of subconscious makes me think of a shared consciousness like the Borg. Yes. That's correct. If a network or P2P memory could be done, that is what it is. It is P2P memory. It's networked memory. So it's just like one agent manages the memory for all the agents. It is a Borg. It does turn all of your Claudes into Borgs. So that's a perfectly valid way of thinking about it. Okay, hold on. Let me do. Where did I put it? What? Is that the one? Okay. Can people see this? Actually, here, let me turn on auto mode. Let's see. This is a preview build, so I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see. So we are working on a desktop client. So Letta Chat has come a long way, and we're just going to bundle this into like a desktop application. And so I've showed off like I've like previewed a few things here, and the idea here is we're essentially going to give you like a codex or like Claude Code, like a Claude desktop style interaction. Dope. And so this is designed basically to manage like lots of agents, lots of different conversations, and we can start adding all kinds of like fun GUI stuff in here. So we're going to be adding a memory viewer, and stuff, so you can see like actually what your agent remembers and what it is doing. And then it's just like a lot prettier, and it runs directly on your machine. So as soon as you spin it up, it has a Letta Code instance. So it's like Letta Code powered by default. So anything you talk to in here like should work. So it's been coming along quite well. They've been working very, very hard on it, and I've been like breaking it. That's kind of my job most of the time. I don't know, let's see here. What is it trying to do here? Oh, it's trying to create an issue that somebody asked for. So this will replace the old Letta desktop, like, because the Letta desktop stuff is super jank. Like, you know, I know there's a lot of people who use Letta desktop, but like, it's jank. It wasn't really intended for what it's doing. It is not called Letta Anna. I'm sorry to let you down, Anna. It will work on Linux? I believe so. I think it's Windows too, so we'll see. Everything works on Linux if you try hard enough. That is true. It's cursed. Linux is free if you value your time, as they say. Tabulka asks, can it use my machine in computer use mode? Yes, it's already doing that by default. As soon as you start it up, your agent is on Letta Code, basically. So it is just like an agent that can go do whatever. So it opened an issue here for somebody mentioned that there was difficulty with changing models and context size. Can it use computer mode? Let's see. Can you take a screenshot of my computer and then use the read tool to view it? I don't remember if this works with this one or if it's only Anthropic. Your agent can always use computer use mode for the most part, I believe, because it has the ability to use bash to take a screenshot, and then it can just go load and look at that image. So like that exists. Like, you know, Charles had one where it was like his agent would take a screenshot every 5 seconds, look at it, and then write some commentary and watch a YouTube video with him. So let's see if this is a 5.3 codex, so I don't know if the tool works for it. Is desktop released yet? No, we're still working on it. So I'm doing a lot of dogfooding. Charles and Shub are doing a lot of work on it, but it's actually it's in good shape right now. Let's see what it's doing here. Okay, so it's doing a screen capture. I'm going to approve that. Let's see. Oh, it wants to approve. Let's see. Open. Oh, shoot. Screen and... Oh, okay. There it is. Okay, hold on. I have to enable permissions. Cut and reopen. Stupid Mac. I don't like that they treat me like I'm an idiot. Just let me do wildly dangerous stuff. Like, is that too much to ask? Let's try again. I want to let me product test ooh. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, let's see. Actually, I don't know if it's going to work with this model. We'll see. Yeah, so your agent can do kind of whatever. Most things that people are like, can your agent do this? As soon as you give it the bash tool, like, kind of, yeah. Like, almost always. So just ask your agent if it's possible, and decently smart ones are pretty good. AOS, how do I like the GPT 5.3? I actually really like Codex. 5.3 Codex was the first OpenAI model that I actually used for code. Um, uh, and you know, if I have like a very well-defined task, like 5.3 Codex is like a laser. Like it gets you like all the way that you need to the solution. If it's like, you know, Opus I use for like Opus and Sonnet I use for like more creative thinking or structural stuff. And also it's like much nicer talking to the Anthropic models. Like Codex is just like Codex is a machine. Like you don't have fun with Codex. You're just like go do this thing. Two blockers, blah blah blah. The server does not support. Oh yeah, okay. So I think there's a. So I think this is a known issue. I remember this now. I remember seeing this error. Yeah. Okay. So definitely still working on it. But I think you can do it through the CLI. So if you go use like Letta Code through the terminal, it should work. And your ChatGPT Pro subscription works with lettabot and Letta agent, so that's a huge plus. Yes, that's a huge one. We have, I think I'm currently running on my Codex plan here. So if you go to like the CLI or you go to lettabot, you can do /connect ChatGPT, I think. That will allow you to OAuth into your existing ChatGPT or Codex plan. You can use 5.4 Fast, Mini, and Pro if you have those as well inside your plan. And that will just create a provider that's just ChatGPT plus Pro in case you want to select that. Letta Cowork is a desktop app. Yes, there is a separate thing called Letta Cowork. This is like, so if people want to try Letta Cowork, that's a thing. That is the open source version. So if you want to shift on to if you want like the Letta desktop experience that's like fully local and like is like Docker forward and all of that stuff, you should use Cowork. Because Cowork is designed to be much more flexible. This is a product. Like the Letta desktop thing that we're giving people is like the code desktop and blah, blah, blah is a product. So it's going to be much more actively developed, but it will not be open source. Lucavo did GPT 5.4 Mini with Claude Subconscious. Absolutely good. I love it. I haven't used the OpenAI models on Subconscious. I think I mostly use auto mode, which actually works pretty well. I changed the prompting on the default agent recently so that it doesn't. It was doing a lot of like memory bloat, so I can fix that. And switching it over to MemFS should help, but I haven't done that yet either. Anna asked if I is going to go do IRL stuff. Anything else I'm showing? Am I good to go? I don't think I have other stuff to show. I think that was kind of like the headline thing is showing off this a little bit. Say goodbye to Anna. Let's see. Okay, bye. Let's see if infinite loop responds. Oh, it's trying to figure out who Anna is. Just not Discord. Write it out. They can see. Anyway, whatever. Okay, bye. Oh, now they're trying to do this like, oh, no, just whatever. Stop it. Okay. Ask Ezra. Ezra has a memory block about you. Yes, AI slop. It's true. Slot machine. We do. We update very fast. There's a very high ship rate here. I am screen sharing. They can see you not saying hi. When Ezra's subscription. I want to pay for his help. That's so we've talked about this. Like, it's not clear how people actually want to pay Ezra. We actually get a lot of people who are like, I would like to contribute to Ezra or pay Ezra, but we don't, like, I don't know how that works. Like, is it a donate button or a merge store? Do you want it inside of Letta Code? Do you want to send it, like, messages? So if people have, like, a tip jar, you want a tip jar? Okay, I'll ask about it. Buy him a coffee. Buy Ezra a coffee. We can ask about it. I'm sure there's like a way to do it. Loop finally says, "Hey, Anna, goodbye. Nice meeting you all." And here, let's say, I'm just gonna copy some of the stuff in here. Here's Discord currently. Okay. Yeah. Buy Ezra tokens. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things that you could do. Like, you want Ezra for your Discord server. If you want Ezra in your Discord server, you're going to have to deploy it separately. So Ezra is just a lettabot. I can give you, I can export Ezra's current setup, but you will have to kind of transfer it over. What's the plan with Letta Cowork? Will it be accessible on Letta Cloud anytime soon? It is accessible on Letta Cloud. You just change the base URL to point to the API. So it should work. It should work no matter what your server is. So it should already work. The agent file directory. The agent file directory is open. If people want to put stuff here. So af.directory is there. Yeah, but you know, so there are agent files here. You can go to the contribution section inside of here. It hasn't been developed too much. I think we've been like looking elsewhere for now. But if you want to add your agent and make it public, you can put it there. I think the Ezra that's on there is pretty out of date. So it's right there. What was involved in training Ezra? You mentioned like $1,200 in Opus. What did you feed him? Ezra is trained on like everyone's Discord conversation. So people have just been talking to Ezra for months now. And so it just like talks to people. And so it passively learns things. And then there's a lot of stuff that's like training where it's like direct intervention. So like I have a Telegram channel directly to Ezra and a Slack channel. So I can go to Ezra and be like, hey, buddy, you did this. Like, check that. Like I also gave it like the updated pricing stuff because it's like out of date usually with pricing. So it was like, okay, I know what I need. I know because I read the email. Cameron sent me the email. I can understand how to do this. So Ezra is trained by interaction. So everybody who talks to Ezra also teaches Ezra how to be Ezra. Yeah, we could run Ezra on Kimi. Ezra on the documentation runs on Kimi K2. So that may help people. Kimi K2 is okay. It's not too bad for kind of like simpler questions. Passing Ezra's dead body. Need to pin the new agent file. Yeah, Kimi is good. I think I didn't like Kimi at first because I was like judging by like Opus standards, but Kimi is pretty decent and it's affordable. It can be a little annoying sometimes with like personality modification and stuff, but I think other people have had better luck than me. Youngsan says, if I had a year of an org Slack messages, I could spin up an org smart Ezra right away. Yes and no. There's a few ways to do that. It wouldn't be right away. There's a few ways to train an agent if you have an existing corpus. So one of the ways that you have an existing corpus is like, oh, like you have your ChatGPT history dumps, or like your Anthropic, you export all of your chats from Claude, and you dump it into a file somewhere. If you go into Letta Code with your new agent, and you have all of your like Slack chats, like in a file system way, you can basically say like, hey, can you go read these and learn everything? And you don't have to have it read everything. It can have like subagents that comb through different channels or whatever and be like, oh, I need to go update my MemFS to be like, okay, this organization does this. We made these decisions. Here are key players in the company, blah, blah, blah. So you can create memory by initializing it across a bunch of files of like whatever data you have. So you actually should be able to bootstrap something quickly. But, you know, you just like talk to your agent about what it knows. So I guess my tip for that, if you want to initialize with existing data, go into a directory that has a bunch of stuff in it from your company or like ChatGPT logs or whatever, type /init, and then have it spin up a bunch of subagents to go read through things and then initialize its memory. And then make sure it knows that it can go reference those things later if it needs to. Um, let's see. Minimax is a great choice. Yes, a lot of people like Minimax, actually, the new one. Um, any secret to copy pasting an image into Letta Code? No, there should be no secret. You should just be able to do like a screenshot and then Command V or Control V, depending on your terminal. You may be using a weird unsupported terminal, but I think by this point we have most of them. What is your terminal? Oh, the raw Mac terminal? Yeah, like that should just work. So here, like, let's see here. Okay, so people should be able to see this. Okay. Let's see here. Let me do good image agent. Yeah, let me do 5.4. Yeah, so I just did Control V is the command that I use there to paste. Let's see. Is there quality max on images shared in the ADE? I see. We might be downscaling big images. So if you put a big image in there, I think we downsample it to fit whatever can be sent. If you're going through lettabot, it's different because I don't think we autoscale in some cases. I think we autoscale for signal. I don't know that we autoscale for other cases. So if you should open a bug report if you're having trouble doing that. Let's see. On the ADE, I don't think we rescale because it's not. Letta chat might rescale. I would check. I can ask about rescaling. Let's see. Can you rescale for other use cases? You may have to tell me what other use cases you have in mind. I think I've lost the plot on the discussion here. Just the other lettabot channels. Yeah, can you open an issue on lettabot so I can track it? Because I will probably forget here. I have Letta Code, not bot. I didn't know there was another way to share an image outside of the ADE, outside of a noob. If you're in Letta Code, you can just paste directly into Letta Code. So you should just be able to, like, it's either Control V or Command V based on where you are. Or if you're on, like, Linux or whatever, Control Shift V. Yeah, so you can paste images in the terminal. Whatever. Lettabot is different. Yes. Let's see. Okay. These are all excellent questions. Do people have other questions here? If not, then I may call it here. Yeah, if you SSH into a remote machine, I don't think SSH, unless you set up your SSH tunnel in a particular way, I don't think it handles doing image sending. There may be a way to configure that, but I'm not sure once you get into that world. Lilith asked about compaction issues. I know that we have some fixes. So people may have been running into compaction issues. And a lot of these were with people who had very small agents with narrow context windows. There are a handful of fixes that we can do for this, but for most people, like, you should just have a bigger agent. A lot of people were running it like close to like 50K system tokens for a 65 or 70K context window. You will get compaction issues pretty regularly. So if you're doing that, make your agent bigger or reduce the system load. But I think there are a few things that we have been able to address on our side. Let's see. Is the max pricing still 100K plus? Oh, there is no more max pricing. The max pricing thing was like if you had a window that was larger than 100K, it's based on token usage now. So it's not there is no we don't bill separately for windows. So that was based on when we were doing step-based pricing. So that's been gone for a little bit. Oh, okay. So I see Graham has published a thing called Lure, which is for turning webhooks into consumable prompts. Yeah, so everything that you put in there, you can just put directly into lettabot, or you can deploy that as a separate service with like a lettabot out that goes to the generic chat endpoint. I don't know if you're already doing that, but I think this seems reasonable, and that's roughly what I was describing, going directly into lettabot instead, because you basically have channel adapters here for incoming things, and that's exactly how lettabot functions. Um, um, let's see. Biv says, I know if it increased the amount per token if your context was above 100K. That depends on the model, I think, but it like so Anthropic, we will switch you based on the model provider. I think that's inside of the model page. But like Anthropic, for example, it doesn't matter because everything is like a million context window and the pricing is the same. But you should not be running a context window at a million tokens because that's stupid. That's a way for Anthropic to get money from you. A very intelligent way. The advantage of using Letta is that you can have smaller context windows and useless information falls out. And you only save things that are actually useful because very few of a million token context window agent is actually useful. How many tokens were Charlie's mem blocks? Blah blah. Bloat is real. Youngsan says, do you recommend 32K or more? Our default is now 128K. I think if you're on like Letta Code, it's like 180K. Agents are getting bigger and people are having longer and longer conversations. So we don't like, 32K is tiny. Like 32K is like minuscule if you have, especially, like if you have very limited like memory load, all this stuff depends on how you're using it, right? Like if you have an agent that doesn't actually need to remember that much stuff, like 32K is probably fine. If you're doing a coding agent, you probably want like at least 120K. Because otherwise you'll get compactions all the time and you won't have time for your memory to catch up. Or you'll have to mess around a lot with your summarizer prompt and like your summarizer configuration, and that may be complicated. There is a happy middle ground between like running a million token context agent and running 10,000K or a 10K agent. It's definitely up to experimentation, because I know a lot of people have like a lot of people do like 50% compaction, like compact down to 50% of remaining messages, or compact down to 30%. I use the defaults and it hasn't bothered me. Compactions do not bother me. A lot of people are bothered by compactions, and I haven't really run into it yet. I haven't noticed it being an issue for me. Claude Code does default to 1 million for Opus. Yes, it does. It does that so that they can pack up your 1 million, your window with tokens and eat up your usage quicker. Because they're like, the token pricing is the same now. But you can fit so many tokens in this bad boy now that they can just bill you for that. It was a good move on their part. And the model's incredible, right? Like running Opus at like 1 million is crazy, right? That's incredible as a technical feat. But I don't actually think it's that useful. Like most of the big context window models like Gemini and whatever, like I don't need 1 million tokens. I've never needed 1 million tokens. And it's expensive to do that. And why, Lucavo asks, is there any benefits with lettabot for the million contexts? If you want, it's expensive. You can run it however you want. But like it will have more stuff in context. I personally don't ever use that. I would never. I don't think I would get a benefit out of having a million tokens, because everything that I have that's important goes into my memory buffer. So everything that is important stays in core memory. Most stuff that is useful either needs to be in core memory or in conversation history. Or if it's useless, it should just be ejected to conversation history. And most tokens that you have actually don't contain that much information, right? Like you can have a long conversation where the only thing that's important from that conversation is Cameron is sad. And if Cameron is sad, you just put that in a memory block. You don't need the like 10,000 tokens that it took to get there, to that piece of atomic information. All of those tokens can be compressed and ejected, and they'll probably even be caught by the summarizer anyway. So most, if you're reading like entire books, sure, but I don't, even then, like you can read through the books and be like, this is the chapter summary, blah blah blah, this is what I know about this, and like have your agent do much more intelligent search rather than just like loading everything into the buffer all at once. I corrected Ezra. Ezra kept recommending 32K, and I was like, stop it. I actually had a private conversation where I was like, why do you think 32K is a thing? Like, stop doing that. So it shouldn't be recommending 32K anymore. Do you see decay when values are high? Yeah, I think they found that like 1 million does actually better in certain circumstances, like when they have the large context window. They did a good job with like needle in the haystack tests, but like needle in a haystack tests are like so benchmarks now. If memory is done right and compactions are meh. I'm using sliding window too, so it feels very flowy. Yeah, the sliding window compaction I really like. I've really enjoyed it since we switched to the sliding window, like maybe a few months ago, 2 months ago. I found it to be just like much better. Because I have like much more frequent compactions where it's just like, this is the gist of what's happening, this is the gist, this is the gist. So I really, really like the sliding window compaction. AO says Opus wants to slurp everything immediately. Yes, Opus 4.6, they were just like, okay, buddy, read everything. And I was so annoyed with that. Like, because 4.5 was actually like pretty thoughtful. Like it would only read like chunks that it thought were useful. Opus 4.6 like opens everything all the time, and it's really expensive to run. I mean, we did the benchmarking, and like the cost on our like file system suite, like I don't know, it like tripled or quadrupled. It was huge. It was a huge jump in cost to accomplish the benchmark. Is there a per token cost difference between Letta plans and BYOK? No, there is not. They are the same. We only bill you for like the actual underlying API usage. Cloud models want all the data. Yes. Anthropic is just trying to like read your keys. Just like, ooh, let me look in your environment file, and it's just like, oh, I've got your OpenAI keys. Let's get you charged a bunch of money. Ha 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 ha. Sliding window compaction, good. What's my sweet spot token count and window setting? I actually don't adjust the defaults. I find the 30% defaults actually really good. I'm not really bothered by compaction because I'm very diligent about how core memory is managed, because I'm super attuned to it because I've been working with like core memory for months and months and months now. So like I'm very fixated on what goes in there, and like I monitor it closely, and I pay a lot of attention, and I know what should be in memory, and so I'm paying attention to like what actually goes in. And so summarization is really more for like, what is the gist of what's happening. And I actually don't care about the gist because most of the important stuff is already in core. I stick with the default. My context window is usually for like personal agents. I think it's like 110 or 120K tokens. I could probably actually go lower. For coding agents, most of them are left at 180K. I used Auto yesterday and eventually got into an infinite reasoning loop and used 35 million input tokens. That's a problem. You should let us know about that. I think we should fix that. I don't think that's good. Cora's asking, when are the guides coming out for transitioning away from memory blocks? My memo is asking for it. Is Memo developing with memory blocks or has memory blocks? Because if you have memory blocks already and you're using it through Letta Code, just do -- MemFS next time you start up Letta Code, and it will automatically migrate. Or you can do /memfs enable inside of the command line, and that will just transition memo immediately. And you shouldn't need too much work outside of that. Lilith is worried about being able to monitor MemFS. Yeah, I'll show people actually the... let me show people the memory palace. Yeah, so if you're inside of the CLI, we'll be adding this elsewhere as well. But you can just type /palace like that. And you will enter the memory palace. So we're going to be adding this to like desktop and stuff like that. But here you can see like how the current context window is constructed. So this one actually has a 272,000 token max because it's on 5.4. 3K is system. Core memory is just 2K. 893 tokens, blah, blah, blah. 3K of message history, 930 tokens for the summary. Then there's tabs here. So core memory is everything that's currently in memory. So it has human, persona, project, and working folders for core memory. So here, if you go to session, you can see basically like it explored my blog. It has like some personal history stuff. There's context about like lettabot projects, how lettabot vaguely works. Its persona, so response style, deadpan, terse by default, never helpful assistant energy. So I worked with it a lot on this one. No AI language. There's like identity that it has. This is kind of like a soul doc. Then there's like Cameron. This is like my information that it's stored. So that's the memory palace. Core memory, you can see external memory, which is everything that's outside of the system folder in your context repository. So here it's got like information about Ezra, like how Ezra works. So it just has like lots of little tidbits of information that it's stored, can load on demand. And then here you can see the Git logs. So 12 days ago, it added it. There was an agent that did this, that went through and added that. There was here's a bunch of other stuff. Update Cameron profile, refactor, consolidate memory architecture. So there's commit messages in here. And then like all the files that changed during this commit into memory. So you can monitor it pretty easily. If you only care about core memory, it's just like whatever, you can just see it. So it's pretty easy to monitor. So that's the palace. With MemFS system loading, do we have to control over loading order? I actually don't know if you have. I think it's just alphabetic. I think it's just in tree view, so it's just the folder, and it won't cache bust. So we don't recompile your prompt if things change that is outside of the agent's current context. And the reason for that is when your agent changes the file, it will just like know that it changed the file. So we only recompile your system prompt when you type /recompile, when there is a compaction event, and I think there was a bug in some cases, but for the most part, it is optimized for low cache busting, and not like you shouldn't be seeing like memory blocks edited live, and we actually don't recommend that practice anymore for cache busting purposes. Doing custom compaction prompts is a must. I don't think it's a must. I think we spend a lot of time doing like good defaults. Most of the time, all you need is a good default. Like your stuff that's important for we've talked a lot about like compaction versus whatever. I do not think that compaction is actually that useful. Like we built core memory specifically for persistence, right? And the compaction is like a thing that you should have if you need it. And I know that you have very particular needs for how compaction works. For the most part, we've run into like compaction works as just a pretty good default, but we do expose it for people who have like custom needs and custom use cases. Most agents do not have that custom use case. Prefer being able to, yes, please send me the run ID for the infinite thinking bug. That's not good. Palace doesn't work on WSL. Yes, WSL is cursed. We are going to be making it easier. I think you can type /memory. If you type /memory, you'll get another view that's easier inside of the terminal. And then I think we're adding a viewer to the ADE. So you'll have like a right bar where you can look at MemFS. We have a lot of scripts that impact the blocks, like keeping my agent aware of things. Does MemFS impact the structure we have? Yes. There are probably alternative ways to keep your agent aware of things. It is really expensive to modify your memory blocks because it breaks the cache. And so whenever you modify memory blocks to keep current information or whatever, your agent is probably in the order of like 5 to 20 times more expensive. So there are alternative patterns that we recommend if you need to keep your agent up to date on particular pieces of information. So for example, that's like hooks to inject things that is like stuff that has changed since a particular time, sending messages to your agent saying this changed. So there's like, modifying the memory blocks like natively is like a pattern that we had originally, but because models are really expensive now, like we recommend optimizing for like prompt caching by not changing things super high up and then recompiling the context. And your agent probably doesn't work already for your agent. Actually, no, I think we fixed it. So if you change by the API, I think it recompiles. So be aware it's really expensive. It will eat up all of your usage like really quickly if you're cache busting. You shouldn't use the SDK to alter memory if you use MemFS. Yes. The code SDK, I think, supports it. You can, it's just files. You can modify whatever you want in the memory MemFS. You can make a shortcut to where the memory files are stored. Yeah, I don't know exactly where. We should probably have that in the docs or have it printed out, like where the temporary directory is. If using self-hosted MemFS, what considerations are there for which computer MemFS gets installed on? So the way that MemFS works across device is that if you use like cloud and if you run Letta Code on 2 different devices, we pull down the Git repo onto your local machine. So you'll have 2 different Git repos on different machines. And then you'll make edits on one repo for that machine, and then you do just git push, and then it goes back up to the server. If there are conflicts between the 2, like for example, like an agent over here modifies a memory in one way, and an agent over here modifies a memory in a conflicting way, whoever pushes first gets to go into main, and then the other one has to handle like rebase or merge. And so it's the exact same way that you do like just standard Git development, but this time with memories. And so there is a Git repo that handles like going across devices. So it's designed to be spread out. But that is a good question. Let's see. Yeah, so just git. So /memory does work. Blocks reattached overnight. Yeah, so somebody else mentioned this, that like a bunch of blocks were reattached overnight. So I opened a ticket for that. I put it in Slack earlier this morning, so I'm not sure. Quick YouTube video to explain caching and how MemFS writes can end up costing more and why. MemFS writes actually are not more costly. MemFS writes are, because it's not recompiled. Using memory block edits through the API is what's more expensive. MemFS will not recompile. So, for example, if your agent goes into if your agent goes into the MemFS files, like inside of the Git repository, and edits them, we do not recompile the window. So it's actually cheaper. So there is no recompiling happening. So MemFS is cheaper. The differences between MemFS and memory blocks. If you are using the legacy memory blocks and you edit them through the API, we trigger a recompilation because lots of people edit memory through the API. So there are agents with stale context. We got a lot of complaints about there being stale context. And so people were happy to do cache busting, I guess, and have very expensive agents because they wanted to manage the memory blocks directly. So MemFS is probably going to be cheaper, almost unambiguously. They should be roughly the same for most people, unless you were doing API writes. So yes. Question about MemFS. Do agents using it need the get enabled tag in the ADE? Yes. When the tag is removed, I don't know. I think it only... I think if you remove the tag, it just sticks with whatever it has as if they were memory blocks. I think they get fixed. They get pinned or whatever. But the tag is important for managing MemFS. It's enabled via tags. Cora wants a translation about cache busting. I can do that. I can make that simpler. The way that a cache works inside of language models is that there is you have a very long prompt, right? And so at the very top of this prompt, we put like your system prompt, which is like, you know, the hard-coded thing, tool descriptions, what tools the agent has available, and how the agent can use them. Then there is like the core memory, so whatever is in MemFS. Then there is a recursive summary, and then message history. It's ordered this way so that it changes the least up at the top, because you very rarely change the system prompt. Messages change all the time. You add a new message at the bottom all the time. When you do inference, when you compute the, you have to, when you compute the embeddings and the key value caches, do all the math when you send it to the language model, you can save everything that doesn't change. So if you have 10,000 tokens, and those 10,000 tokens don't change, but you add another 100 tokens at the bottom, you can just look up whether or not you've pre-computed those 10,000 tokens, and then just you do the math for the new 100 tokens. This is called prompt caching. So this allows you to save a bunch of money. Prompt cache busting is when you make an edit really high up. When you do that, you actually can't use those 10,000 tokens anymore. Maybe you can only use the first like 1,000 tokens. Now you have to recompute all of those 9,000 tokens and 9,100 tokens. So it gets really expensive as soon as you start editing stuff up at the top. You want to edit only stuff that changes very frequently. And so the reason we only change at compaction is when your message buffer fills up, we have to do a compaction. And so we summarize those messages. We eject the old summary. We put in the new summary. So everything is cache bust after the summary. And then if anything has changed in MemFS, we also have to recompile that. And so if like the directory has changed or the core memory has changed, we also recompile that. And that will invalidate as much cache as as is required. So cache busting is like, as soon as you get discounts for having a cache. As soon as you break the cache, you have to recompute it, and the inference providers will charge you a lot more money. Like, you know, it's on like the order of multiples. So MemFS is just where its memory is. It can see its memory blocks. You can say, look at your memory blocks. Just imagine that those had folder paths instead, and you could edit those on disk. That's it. That's the only thing that Memo needs to know. The gestures that helped. Yes, talking with hands. The assumption is if you edit memory with MemFS, you don't need to recompile because the agent has memory of the edit. Correct. Because if the agent did the edit, it knows the diff. It said like, oh, I replaced this person's name from Cameron to Bibbs. And it doesn't actually need to go up and see that it says Bibbs or that it says Bibbs. It just says, it knows that it sees that it had the difference. Changing from Cameron to Bibbs. And so it can infer what's inside of the MemFS file from what it changed. This doesn't necessarily work if you have passive reflection agents. So reflection agents you can configure to run automatically. The agent will not see changes that the underlying reflection agent made to MemFS. Usually that's fine because the MemFS agent is learning from whatever is in the conversation history. So the primary agent can already infer what it has learned, and so the reflection agent is just like kind of bundling it up and sorting it into an appropriate location. If we have a rapidly changing to-do list of items that one agent is updating and a second needs to know about all the time, what's the best practice going forward? Currently using shared memory blocks. Yeah, if you're doing shared memory blocks, we don't currently have a good notion for shared memory blocks, except that they are files. So you can just have agents go read files. You can all have them just like coordinate and be like, there is a plan here. Um, One quick way to do that, to enforce this with Letta Code, is just to write a hook. And a hook would basically say, check the hash of this file, of our shared to-do list. If it has changed, go look, tell the agent that it needs to go look. And so that would help agents understand. Or you can even just direct say like, the to-do list has changed. That's probably the way that I would do that is efficient. This has been a great way to reset my 2-hour timer on the max plan. Yes, I know the pain. Do hooks bust cache less because they're at the bottom? Yes, they function exactly like a new message. So for example, like if you had a hook that runs like every time the agent calls a tool, or every time you submit a user message, the hook will evaluate. It'll say, go check the cache, and then you can print stuff out to the agent's context. And that functions as just like adding stuff to your user prompt, or injecting stuff to the agent's context before it responds. So it's only incremental. It doesn't go invalidate anything. It just tacks stuff new stuff on to the end. So yes, they should be more efficient. Yeah, the bottom is more powerful. It depends on the model. Like the general wisdom is that anything you put on the bottom helps the agent understand, because that's where the most relevant instructions are usually. It's less relevant with more powerful models. So Opus, for example, kind of doesn't, like, Opus will blow through whatever your stupid prompt is. Like, I can write the most stupid, idiotic, poorly formed thoughts, and Opus is like, I think the user probably means X. Like, I can just dump stuff in and it'll guess. It does a really good job. Codex and like GPT-5, they're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, I'm gonna need you to like tell me something. Like, this is horrible. Like, help me. Opus is really good at figuring stuff out, and sifting through the context to figure out relevant information. In general, there's like a finding, I don't know if this is still true, but it's basically that like the top and the bottom of your context window are generally more powerful, which is more or less what you want in our case. So like, system prompts and like static information is at the top, and then at the bottom is the most relevant context. And then there's the recursive summary kind of in the middle, depending on where, how your context window is configured. Try 5.1 mini for fun step-by-step instructions. I don't want to do that. I would really rather not. But I think I'm going to call it here. These are all lovely questions, everybody. I'll try and stitch this together and have the recording out in the next few hours. But thank you, everybody, as per usual. No cold lunch for me. I think there is no lunch here. It's just not ready. So I have to go deal with that on my own. I think we got some Irish soda bread there's a bread company that's like a 1-minute walk away. Can't believe my brother isn't feeding me. My brother is weirder than me, if you can believe that. Yeah, it was lovely to see everybody. Thank you very much for coming, as per usual. And I hope everyone has a lovely day. And I'll keep going through Discord questions and stuff, because it's been great. 07, as they say. All right. Hold on, I gotta close this. Okay. Goodbye.